Welcome to the debate. Imagine walking into a massive, sprawling supermarket, but the moment you step through the sliding glass doors, the physical space around you just, well, begins to alter itself.
Like a hallucination?
Basically, yeah. The aisles literally rearrange themselves, the shelves shift up and down, the overhead lighting dims to a softer hue, and the products on display morph, all based on, the micro expressions on your face.
Wow.
Right? Or the exact amount of time you lingered in your car in the parking lot, or even the specific brand of cereal you bought like 3 years ago.
And let me guess, the store manager is following right behind you with a clipboard. They're completely invisible, obviously, but they are recording every single time your eyes dart to a price tag.
Exactly.
Recalculating the cost of a loaf of bread down to the penny and changing that price right before you can even, reach out your hand to grab it.
Yeah, it sounds like a surreal, maybe mildly dystopian piece of science fiction. But that is the precise architecture of our digital market today. The profound integration of artificial intelligence it's completely rewired the digital economy.
It really has.
We've moved away from the old days of periodic human-led data analysis, and we've entered an era of continuous, real-time optimization. AI is now the permanent, invisible infrastructure deciding what we see, when we see it, and ultimately, how we are persuaded to act.
Which really brings us to the core tension we're unpacking on the show today. We are looking at this massive shift and asking a very foundational question. Does the extreme personalization and, frankly, unprecedented operational efficiency driven by AI actually justify the inherent risks to user data privacy, transparency, and human autonomy?
Look, I fundamentally believe this massive technological innovation is a net positive. It brings essential efficiency and democratizes the market in ways that vastly benefit everyone.
Vastly benefit everyone.
Yes. If we understand how it works, we see that it turns what could be just extreme personalization into a frictionless, highly relevant experience for the consumer.
Well, you see a frictionless utopia. But I look at this exact same data and see a digital surveillance state, disguised as a helpful concierge.
Oh, come on. Surveillance state.
Yes, absolutely. Without rigorous data protection, explainability, and regulatory oversight, this so-called personalization at scale crosses a dangerous line. It turns into algorithmic surveillance that fundamentally exploits the very users it claims to serve.
Okay, well, to really get into this, we have to look at the mechanics of how the digital economy actually functions right now. AI is actively removing friction from our daily lives.
If you don't mind being tracked, sure.
Let me finish. Take a massive complex system like global supply chain logistics, right? When a massive winter storm blocks a major highway or a shipping port experiences unexpected delays, the AI models governing the logistics aren't just, sending an email to a human asking what to do.
Right, they don't have the time for that.
Exactly. They are instantaneously ingesting raw GPS coordinates, live weather forecasts, warehouse stock levels. They recalculate the routes and renegotiate freight capacity with carriers on the fly in milliseconds.
Sure, which is great for shipping containers.
But as a consumer, you don't see a message saying delayed due to unforeseen circumstances because the AI mathematically prevents those circumstances from impacting you. And this exact same efficiency applies to consumer-facing personalization.
Okay, but the mechanism of that personalization is exactly where the problem lies. Traditional digital marketing used to rely on broad, relatively harmless segments, right?
Mm-hmm.
A marketer would target people aged 25 to 34, living in Chicago who, like basketball. But today, AI analyzes millions of individual signals in real time to build staggeringly detailed behavioral profiles.
Which makes the ads actually useful.
We aren't just talking about clicks and scrolls anymore. We are talking about tracking device types, the specific time of day you are most active, and most alarmingly, even analyzing facial microexpressions if you're interacting with video content on your phone.
I see why you think that, and I know the privacy alarm bells are ringing. But let me give you a different perspective. Think of this predictive AI as a hyper-competent concierge rather than a surveillance state.
A concierge doesn't watch my pupils dilate.
But curating a digital world based on predictive analytics, which, let's be clear, is simply taking historical data to find patterns and guess what you want next. That removes the immense deafening noise of the internet.
Does it?
Yes. Consider streaming services like Netflix or Spotify. If you're listening to this analysis on Spotify right now, the algorithm already analyzed whether you skipped the first 10 seconds of the last show you listened to, and it's using that data to decide what to recommend next.
Right.
Your homepage looks completely different from mine because the AI is ranking content based on statistical likelihoods of your personal engagement. So isn't a tailored experience objectively better for the consumer than broad, irrelevant targeting?
I come at it from a different way. A concierge asks you what you want. A concierge doesn't monitor your pupils through a camera lens to decide what you are allowed to look at next.
That's a bit hyperbolic, don't you think?
Let's talk about how these systems actually measure engagement. You mentioned predictive analytics, but let's look at a specific metric that is everywhere right now: dwell time. Do you know how they track it?
By how long you stay on the page.
It's not just that you stayed on a web page. The code is literally tracking the micro-movements of your mouse, or the exact milliseconds your thumb hesitates while scrolling past an ad on your phone.
Okay.
It matched that hesitation against millions of other users who hesitated for exactly 1.2 seconds before buying something impulsively.
Which means it's figuring out what you actually care about. It's finding relevance.
But it alters the power dynamic. When an AI monitors the exact time of day your willpower is lowest and targets you with a specific type of messaging based on your thumb's hesitation, it is not just suggesting, it is controlling.
I wouldn't say controlling.
It creates an aggressive feedback loop. The AI helps generate the content, and then the AI decides exactly how far that content spreads based on these invisible behavioral triggers. That is crossing the line from helpful curation into privacy-infringing surveillance. It's curating a reality designed solely to extract maximum revenue, not to serve your best interests.
But maximizing revenue in a highly competitive market usually requires serving the user's best interests. If the recommendations are terrible, you close the app.
Or you get stuck doom scrolling.
The AI is constantly optimizing for relevance. And look, we must recognize how this predictive capability empowers the sellers too. Not just massive tech giants, but everyday people. Let's look at how this democratizes the market.
Democratizes? Are we really using that word?
Yes, absolutely. In the past, sophisticated targeting, dynamic pricing, behavioral automation, all of that was the exclusive domain of massive corporations with, endless IT budgets and armies of data scientists.
Sure, they had a monopoly on the tech.
Right. But today we have no-code and low-code platforms powered by AI. And for the listener, no-code means exactly what it sounds like. Instead of needing to know how to write complex software infrastructure, a solo entrepreneur can just drag and drop visual building blocks.
Right, it's very accessible now.
A single creator working out of their garage can set up an AI-driven funnel that captures leads, qualifies them via an automated chatbot, sends personalized emails based on browsing behavior, and predicts exactly when to offer a discount, all without writing a single line of code. The playing field has been radically, profoundly leveled.
Well, the playing field might be leveled for the sellers, but the buyers, everyday consumers, are walking into a minefield of automated decisions. The democratization of these tools means that highly consequential decisions are being handed over to automated black boxes at scale.
I think black box makes it sound far more nefarious than it is. It's just complex math.
But it is literally a black box. Let's define what that means. In these complex machine learning models, like deep neural networks, you feed data into the system and you get a decision out.
Right.
But the layers of math in between the hidden layers where the model assigns weight to thousands of different variables are so complex and adapt so rapidly that even the engineers who built the system cannot trace exactly why it made a specific choice.
It's emergent behavior. Yes.
So what happens when a user is denied a loan because a predictive model decides their online browsing habits correlate with bad credit risks? Algorithmic bias becomes a massive danger. If these black box models are controlling real-world outcomes like credit risk and dynamic pricing, we absolutely need explainability and contestability.
That's an interesting point, though. I would frame it differently.
Oh!
Yes, transparency is important, obviously, But we cannot ignore the protective and stabilizing power of these automated decisions. Let's look at financial risk management. Fraud detection systems in major banks monitor millions of transactions every single second.
Right. They have to.
They use these exact same black box AI models to spot anomalies that would be totally invisible to a human analyst. If a transaction seems unusual based on the geographic location, the amount, or the speed of the behavioral patterns, the system blocks it in milliseconds.
Sure, stopping fraud is great, but at what cost to transparency?
The cost of a functioning system. If we accept that AI optimization protects consumers from identity theft in real time, isn't demanding perfectly transparent, human slow oversight actively harming the market?
I'm not saying humans need to look at every transaction.
But if we force the system to wait for human to review and logically explain every single block transaction, the entire global financial system would collapse under its own weight by Tuesday afternoon. The efficiency is the protection.
Again, I'm not arguing for humans to manually review a $20 coffee purchase before it clears. I am arguing against the absolute opacity of the system governing our lives.
It's not absolute opacity.
It is to the user. If you are locked out of your entire financial life because a predictive analytics model decided your legitimate behavior mirrored a fraudster and the bank cannot legally or technically explain why the model made that choice, your fundamental rights have been violated.
But the accountability is mathematically built into the optimization metrics. Let's examine continuous real-time optimization because this is perhaps the most fascinating shift in modern business.
Fascinating is one word for it.
We have moved entirely away from the old world of running a marketing campaign for a month and then, reading a static PDF report to figure out what went wrong. Today, AI operates in a continuous rhythm. Advertising platforms like Google Performance Max use reinforcement learning style mechanisms.
And what does that actually mean for the user?
Well, for the listener, think of reinforcement learning kind of like training a dog with treats. The algorithm tries showing a blue button to a specific demographic. If someone clicks, the algorithm gets a mathematical treat, a reward.
Right.
It tries a red button, no click, no reward. So it learns instantly. These platforms automatically test thousands of ad variants, audiences, and budgets simultaneously, and instantly reallocate money to the best performing combinations multiple times an hour.
And you think that's purely good?
I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning regarding absolute opacity, because the empirical data shows these systems drastically reduce wasted resources and allocate capital with breathtaking efficiency. It prevents waste.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why. You are equating operational efficiency with ethical correctness.
I'm really not.
You are. When you tune a business so tightly around real-time short-term metrics, like capturing a click or clearing warehouse inventory down to the exact second, you run the immense risk of over-optimization. You actively damage long-term strategy and, more importantly, customer trust. Let's look at the mechanics of dynamic pricing.
Dynamic pricing is just supply and demand.
It is much more than that. Dynamic pricing algorithms adjust prices automatically based on demand, competitor pricing, and deeply personal user behavior. Let's bring back that invisible store manager from your opening metaphor.
Okay, let's bring them back.
If I look at a flight online and my mouse hovers over the buy button but I hesitate, the AI registers that dwell time. It knows I am anxious to purchase but price sensitive. If the price then jumps 20% 5 minutes later because the AI detected my hesitation and predicted it could squeeze more margin out of my anxiety, that mathematically maximizes revenue.
Yes, it does.
But from a consumer standpoint, it is deeply manipulative.
I think manipulative is a very loaded term for what is essentially the basic law of economics acting at the speed of light.
The speed of light?
Yes. In a physical market, if a street vendor sees a massive crowd suddenly rushing their stall for umbrellas because it started pouring rain, they raise the price. The AI is simply doing that exact same calculation across millions of data points simultaneously.
It's not the same thing.
And it works both ways. If a product sits in a warehouse too long, the AI automatically lowers the price or bundles it into a personalized promotion to clear the inventory. It keeps capital from being tied up, and it gives a consumer a fantastic deal. It balances the market perfectly.
But the umbrella vendor in your physical market cannot read my microexpressions. They don't know my exact bank account balance. They don't know that my smartphone battery is currently sitting at 2%, making me increasingly desperate to book a rideshare home, which, by the way, is a real data point that algorithms have historically looked at to adjust surge pricing.
It's an environmental signal, yes.
It's an asymmetry of information. The invisible store manager knows far too much about the buyer, while the buyer knows absolutely nothing about how the price was calculated. That asymmetry is exactly why we are seeing a massive push internationally towards stricter AI regulations.
Regulations which could stifle innovation.
Issues like algorithmic bias, data privacy, and the fundamental fairness of automated decisions are the central concerns for regulators right now. We absolutely need upcoming regulations requiring explicit consent and explainability because the balance of power has skewed entirely toward the machine. The AI is optimizing the user right out of their own agency.
Agency is a really interesting concept here. Are we losing agency, or are we being freed from the mundane friction of life?
I'd say losing agency.
Well, look at customer service operations. AI chatbots powered by large language models now handle a vast share of first contact inquiries. They don't just send automated replies. They conceptually categorize the issue, estimate the urgency, and process refund policies without human intervention.
Right, to save money.
If support volumes spike because a website goes down, the AI detects the pattern in minutes and shifts its own server allocations automatically. For businesses, this means offering 24/7 support at a fraction of the cost. For customers, it means instantaneous responses. You argue we are losing agency, but I argue we are gaining time. The AI takes on the heavy lifting of the digital world, so we don't have to.
And what happens when that automated customer service model encounters a complex, emotionally nuanced issue that it fundamentally misinterprets?
It escalates to a human.
Not always. The user often gets trapped in an endless, infuriating loop of generic AI responses because the model lacks human context, and the company has removed all the human operators to save a few cents. Companies consistently choose cost-cutting over quality.
That's a generalization.
They deploy the AI not as a helpful consultant, but as an impenetrable barrier between the corporation and the consumer. It is symptomatic of the larger issue we're discussing. When you treat human interaction strictly as a mathematical metric to be optimized and minimized, you lose the foundational trust that all commerce is built upon.
I disagree that trust is lost. I think trust is simply evolving. We are learning to trust the system to work. We trust the GPS to route us around traffic without asking how it calculated the satellites, right? And we trust the fraud detection to secure our bank accounts.
That's utilitarian trust, not interpersonal trust.
Predictive models forecast customer behavior by finding subtle patterns in historical data that human intuition could never spot. If an online retailer uses AI to identify which users are most likely to buy during a seasonal sale and precisely tailors their experience, that prediction is far more accurate than guesswork. Businesses are tying their entire infrastructures to these AI-driven insights because the mathematics are undeniably superior.
Superior mathematics do not equal a superior market for the human beings living inside of it. Yes, the predictive analytics can forecast churn risk by analyzing historical data, but we have to ask, where did that data come from?
From user behavior.
Was it collected with explicit, informed consent? Or was it scraped from the invisible shadows of our digital footprint, our hesitations, our battery life, our silent scrolls? The core tension we are debating isn't whether the math works. We both know the math works brilliantly.
Exactly.
The question is whether the societal cost of that math is too high. If we allow aggressive optimization to be the only rhythm of the digital economy, we build a market that views human beings entirely as datasets to be squeezed for maximum return on ad spend.
And I think that brings us to a really clear crystallization of where we stand. The shift from periodic, human-led analysis to constant, algorithmic optimization has fundamentally and permanently altered how business is done.
There is no going back, that's for sure.
AI's integration into the digital market is an ongoing evolution.
It is no longer a question of whether AI will be part of the market. It is the underlying infrastructure of the market. My position remains that this massive technological innovation democratizes access for creators, resolves incredibly complex logistical inefficiencies instantly, and creates a highly tailored digital reality. Those who intelligently embrace this AI layer to remove friction from the customer experience are going to thrive.
And my position remains that without strict, enforceable regulation and mandatory human oversight, this digital market becomes an exploitative black box. Extreme personalization at scale is fundamentally invasive. When algorithms monitor our physical reactions and dynamically adjust prices based on our vulnerabilities, they exploit consumers rather than serving them. We absolutely require robust data protection frameworks to ensure this technology respects fundamental privacy rights.
Well, what we certainly agree on is that AI has shifted from an occasional tool we consult during quarterly reviews to a continuous, tireless optimizer that watches, learns, and adjusts operations moment by moment.
Absolutely. It is the permanent reality. The tension between seamless technological innovation and our fundamental right to data privacy is undoubtedly the defining challenge of modern business leadership.
And I imagine there is much more to explore regarding how upcoming international regulations might reshape the exact mechanics of these tools we interact with every single day.
It will certainly dictate the future of our digital autonomy.
We will leave it to you, the listener, to form your own conclusion on whether extreme AI personalization is worth the privacy trade-off. But the next time you walk into a digital space, whether you are scrolling a feed, booking a flight, or dropping an item into an online shopping cart, just remember the metaphor we started with. The aisles are shifting around you, the lighting is changing based on your mood, and the prices are recalculating before you even reach out your hand.
The invisible store manager is always watching.
Thank you for joining us.